I just wanted to go home, and all I could say was just, I want to go home. I want to go home. And the nurse didn't even ask me anything. She just looked me and, oh, you want to go home? Okay, go pay your copay right over there and you can go home. Wow. And, I'm still in shock. My wife, I've never been to the ER. This is not something that we knew how to even handle. We weren't even thinking. We were just trusting that everybody was doing the right part.
This is the Transparency Podcast Show from Long Beach, California, where we bring you life transformation stories, business, investment, personal development, entertainment, and more.
Welcome back to Transparency Podcast Show. I'm your host, Shelbe and Shane. Today, our guest, I've been knowing him about 7 to 8 years, and we crossed paths in one of the play that he was in. And at that time, I remember he was the last performance. And me and my friend was sitting there because it was supposed to be our trans cast. And we were looking at this person and saying, is he a trans? I'm not too sure, but he looks so manly. So today we're going to have him come here to share his trans journey. He does music, he does DJing, and he also have a very special story that he want to share, and everybody should hear. And we need to have this voice, and he's going to represent our community to speak out. So his name is Shane Ivan Nash. Welcome to the show.
Welcome. Well, thank you for having me, Shelby. It's a pleasure to be a part of your amazing production.
Yeah, I love your hat. Can you tell us why you're wearing this hat today?
Well, I actually just got off of DJing at Long Beach Pride, so I had to be festive for Pride. And, you got to put a chandelier on to have fun.
Yeah, I love it. And your shoes, so...
I'm giving gay cowboy,
So tell us a little bit about yourself, like your backgrounds and your transition journey.
Yeah, so born and raised in Los Angeles. I've been in activism probably about 11 years now. I've worked as a DJ, I've worked as an event producer, I've worked as a board member for LA Pride. I'm also the current chair of the West Hollywood Transgender Advisory Board. Very excited about that. And I'm all around just working really hard. Yeah.
Yeah, so when I met you, you were in a play. Do you have any acting passions or any sort of practice in that field?
Yeah. So, I've always loved acting. My biggest challenge with acting is always remembering the lines. Definitely. I always get nervous when I go to remember the lines. I can give the passion in the character, but oh my God, when you're reading those lines, I just forget everything that needs to be said. And
Yeah, so I was so amazed because play you cannot do cut or editing. So I haven't done any play before because of my language barrier. So I don't. Yeah. So I watched the show and like I was mentioned, I couldn't tell you're a trans man. Yeah. That is a compliment. But so have you always been feeling different, growing up?
Yeah, for me, it's every trans person's story is unique.
Yeah.
I kind of came out of the womb trans, kicking and screaming.
Okay.
I knew I was trans from a very early age. Unfortunately, I grew up in the 90s, so there wasn't any resources or even awareness. Trans men didn't even really exist. We had maybe one or two in media, and it was very limited to even see trans mask folks. So, I've grown through that experience and been really intentional about being visible as a trans man because we got to show up and show our story and really tell about what we're going through so we can create these resources.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you came out, how do your family or friends respond to that?
Oh, well, for me, it's been definitely a challenge. I came out to my family about 16 years old, and it didn't really go too well. I left home afterwards, and I've been on my own pretty much ever since with any blood-related relatives. Recently, I did reconnect with my aunt who is in New York, which is amazing. Someone I connected with actually at the age of 20. I didn't even know she existed. And she's so queer-friendly. And it's so beautiful because she originally was married to a man when I first met her. And through, a lot of conversation that we had, she actually discovered her own sexuality in that process. So now I'm an elder even to my aunt, and she calls me, and it's so crazy because she's like dating all these girls and asking advice. And I'm like, you just came out. What do you mean you have a date on Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and Friday? Like, what is going on in New York? So it's just been this ever evolving stage for me. And, again, I haven't had the direct family, but I've been able to build my own family through community.
Yeah, that's exactly. Because oftentimes when we put ourselves out there, music or even video projects, outsider will make some comments, negative comments, and usually our response to is like, you need to open your mind, be open, because you never know, maybe one of those days, somebody, colleague, friends, or family might came out. And then, so also, what about your music experience? Do you always have passion towards music?
Music has healed my soul. Music is my biggest passion. I originally was a geek in school. I didn't go to parties or anything. I stayed and I learned how to play as many instruments as possible. I got into electronic music at the age of 14. I was lucky enough to do that through high school. I went to the magnet program, actually. I was able to get in through that through music. And music has been a saving grace for me. It's been something so important to really telling my story while at the same time creating melodies and sounds and lyrics that really represent what I'm going through. And it's so transformative to create a song and listen back to it. And I'd almost forget that I'm the one singing to the lyrics because I can relate to the singer so much because it's telling my story. And it's hard to find music like that for us.
Yeah, because LGBTQ love stories. I invite Shane to write a song for us. We might include it in the end of the show.
Yeah.
So, it was a great. I love the song. So it's called Bloodline, right?
Yeah, Bloodline.
Is that related to what you just mentioned with your family?
Yeah, that was exactly what that was related to. The experience that I had with having to learn that I had to let go of family and the pain that caused through the bloodline experience, but also realizing at the same time that the family that I can build doesn't necessarily have to be through my bloodline. I can, again, build it outside with community.
Yes. We talk about family and community. I went to your wedding.
Yes, you did.
And
one of only 20 people that were invited. There's people that are still mad that didn't get invited.
Are you serious?
Yes,
I'm so honored. And actually, that was still up to today. That's the only wedding I went for in our community.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very unique, and we all had a good time. And so now you're building your own family now, right?
Yeah.
So how's the journey so far?
The journey has been great. I've been with my wife for 17 years now. I am building my career. I am building, the foundation that I'm working with, which is Invisible Men, which is, specifically for trans masculine folks. I'm working with the city with a lot of good changes. And through a lot of the things that I have been able to experience, whether good or bad, I can always see that there's something that we're building in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so talk about the city. You have a story to share. It's very. I saw it when I saw it last year when you posted. It's very heartbreaking because everyone in our community does go to those venues, restaurants, bars.
Yeah.
And it can actually happen to any of us.
Yeah.
So would you mind, share what happened, like from the very beginning? Were you there with friends? Were you on a date? Not date with your wife, or what happened?
Yeah. Well, I first of all want to just thank you for creating a platform to tell this story, because it's been quite tragic, honestly, let me take this hat off so we can have a little serious moment here so that folks can understand the importance of the story. But it was a really interesting story, and I can kind of give you somewhat information. Some of it I have to kind of keep because it is still an active investigation.
Okay,
but
sure.
I can give you some information that I work really hard in the community, and I don't go out often. And when I did finally decide to go out, this unfortunately happened to me. And through this happening to me, with the club, with the sheriffs, with the hospital, with the city, with the media, with everything that's been involved, it's been quite interesting, learning, traumatic, beautifully painful ride to experience, because at the same time something horrible happened to me, but I was able to realize who around me supported me and will show up for me. I went out one night. I went to a local West Hollywood bar. It was, after work. It was just supposed to be just a little casual thing to hang out with. And unfortunately, it looks like someone slipped something in my drink. It's something that I'd never experienced before, because, I mean, Shelby, you know me for years and years and years. I'm not the type to get, intoxicated, passed out.
Right.
I'm pretty responsible when it comes to that. And I've never experienced this in my life. I went into that bathroom and I completely passed out. I lost vision, which was so scary to me, because, I've been drunk before, we've all been young and made mistakes, but in this particular case, and the reaction that my body experienced is something I've never experienced. So there's no doubt in my mind that I was drugged, just because of how fast the reaction was.
So you sitting at a bar, you went alone or with friends?
I was with coworkers, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were drinking, you were having fun, relaxed, and then you feel something. That's why you went to the bathroom?
Yeah. So I was just, that's the crazy thing is, I mean, I've even been able to review some of the footage of me in the bar right before entering the bathroom, and I'm, wide awake, laughing, joking, fully, coherent, doesn't look like I'm stumbling in any way, shape, or form. And the moment that I hit the bathroom stall and opened up the stall, all of a sudden I couldn't breathe and I couldn't speak. I couldn't think. It was like everything shut down on me in a way that I had never experienced in my entire life. The only words that I could say out of my mouth were just the words 911, because I couldn't even think beyond that, because I knew it was so serious what was happening to me. I thought I was dying.
So that's the last thing you remember, right?
Well, partially. I mean, I did get woken up in the midst of that while I was still in the bathroom by a security. I remember he was tapping me on my left shoulder saying, come on, buddy, you're just drunk. You don't want to wake up. And all I could say were the words 911, 911. And he kept tapping me saying, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine. And then I finally screamed 911 as my last gasp of energy that I could get out. And then I passed out. And the next time that I woke up, I'm in the back of an emergency vehicle throwing up into a bag. And I have no idea how I've gotten there. I can't, I can barely see. My vision's completely, gone. I'm just confused on how from one second I was fine to the next second I'm in the back of an ER.
So I remember reading some article or some reporting.
Yeah.
You were passed out in a bathroom for an hour.
30 minutes. 30 minutes. We were able to determine that it was 30 minutes.
And then you were unclothed.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. So
okay, go ahead.
The horrible thing about it is, how security treated me afterwards didn't really get noted in the police report properly. The detective didn't even interview the manager that was with the security. She only interviewed the one security guard from the club, and no one else was interviewed that day. Meanwhile, in that same police report, that same detective asked me what I had for breakfast in such detail about my day, and was going through every excruciating detail. But when it came to, looking back at the report that she submitted, writing about the security, I mean, it was barely a paragraph.
So just remind our audience, this is in one of the LGBTQ friendly.
Yeah, probably
club.
The most friendliest,
Club
it's
West Hollywood.
West Hollywood.
So they're not like discriminating in a way of because
You would think, you
right?
would think it'd be a safe space, especially with, how many queer people you see
Right,
attending the
right,
venues, the advertisement that goes along with it. The city has tried to do a lot about really including transgender people into the nightlife. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people in community that are not trans that are in the city of West Hollywood that don't believe that people like me are even a part of the statistical data of West Hollywood, that we're, a tiny fraction, so to speak.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from, and tiny fraction, and also maybe we're not as a financial ability as
Economic
a consumer.
power.
Yeah. So maybe that's also why. So you say you went in the sorry.
No, you're no problem. It's really intense. So I'll keep walking you through. So I was in the back of an ambulance, and then I was taken to the local hospital there, which is the hospital that if you are drugged at any bars or any Pride or anything, this is going to be the hospital that you're sent to.
Okay.
And unfortunately, through my experience, we discovered that that hospital doesn't provide rape kits.
Oh.
And that hospital is the main hospital that folks are sent to in this area. And the closest place is 45 minutes away. And most of our community, doesn't have access to even go to another place when they've already dealt with so much trauma. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So when you woke up or when you conscious, did they tell you what happened to you, or
so that's the horrible thing as well. I remember being pushed into the hospital on the gurney cart. Couldn't see still. I could hear, I'm assuming probably a nursing manager or someone was asking me questions. The typical questions when you're being administered and being shifted from the gurney that you are on the ambulance truck onto an official gurney for the hospital. I felt them grab me up, and the whole time I was repeating to them, I've been drugged. I only had a few drinks. I don't understand what happened. I don't understand. And then I, pass back out. I wake back up again. They throw a phone on my chest. Somehow, some way, even through everything, I was able to call my wife and tell her where I was because she was at home. It was 2 a.m. when I actually got to make contact with her. I called her, I told her where I was, and then I passed back out again. And the next time that I woke up, she was there by my bed. And I woke up in a gown that was too small for me in a hallway with an IV cart attached to me, a crash cart. And I had to go to the bathroom really bad. And I asked the nurse, please, can you remove the IV? I really got to go to the bathroom. She pulls the IV out, and I head over to the bathroom. And I stand up, and I get off the gurney, and I'm hobbling along. And I just see the door, and I'm heading towards the door. My wife goes, where is your underwear? So the gown that I'm wearing in this hallway in this hospital where people are just walking through, my whole, back is exposed. And I come and I sit back down on the bed and I start shaking, and I didn't really know what was going on. And I asked them, I said, did you test anything? Did you test anything? And they said, oh, we couldn't test anything for you. It's already been too late.
What?
And we were very confused about that as well. Unfortunately, that same hospital doesn't do testing for, right. It's
crazy.
It's crazy because you would think this area that is so, Pride friendly and all of this, that the resources would be there. But unfortunately, the hospital you're sent to isn't even trained to be able to handle this. You have to be lucky enough for a nurse to, it has to be like a violent rape for them to really notice that you need to have a referral. And as I started shaking and they were telling me, oh, there's nothing we can do, I already was feeling so dysphoric about my body. I mean, as a trans person, being in the hospital is my worst fear, especially passed out.
Okay, so they made a conclusion.
Yeah, that I was just drunk.
No, I mean, in the hospital, they didn't make a conclusion you were sexually assaulted?
Not at all, but here's the crazy thing. So after I asked the nurse, I said, can I get some water? And she said she's going to get me water. She never gets me water. My wife then goes and says, hey, he needs some water. And I'm just starting to kind of shake there from anxiety or from whatever they gave me. The doctors that said most likely it was ketamine. that they gave me, and my body was just in such shock. I just wanted to go home, and all I could say was just, I want to go home. I want to go home. And the nurse didn't even ask me anything. She just looked me and, oh, you want to go home? Okay, go pay your copay right over there and you can go home.
Wow.
And, I'm still in shock. My wife, I've never been to the ER. This is not something that we knew how to even handle. We weren't even thinking. We were just trusting that everybody was doing the right part, and that, all I needed to do was know that I was stable and I was okay, and everybody else was going to do their job, and I just had to worry about being okay.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I put my clothes back on that were hanging off the gurney in a plastic bag, and my clothes were sopping wet down to my socks. And I said to my wife, so I said to my wife, I said, do you think that I sweated this hard, that when I passed out, that maybe... And then she goes, but it's down in your socks. And then and I was also wearing a bomber jacket. The water was on the outside of the bomber jacket. So we were like, and my clothes were completely drenched all the way from head to toe. And it was so confusing because why were my clothes wet? And I had a nurse actually tell me, well, if you were in the ER and they are administering you and you're passed out, most of the time they cut through your clothes. They don't slowly remove your clothes.
Yeah.
My clothes had no damage to them at all, as if someone just kind of gently slipped them off. There was no rips to my jeans. There was no rips to my shirt, not even my collar. There was nothing out of the ordinary. There was this sticky substance that was on my neck and my chest that I felt, and then there was some substance that was in my genital area and substance that was on my chest.
Yeah.
Whoever assaulted me attempted to remove my grafted nipple from my top surgery. I'm still actually trying to find a surgeon right now because unfortunately through the victims fund, a lot of these surgeons are afraid they're actually not going to be paid out properly by the victims fund. So I'm actually having to fight to find a surgeon, even though I have an approved application to pay, $70,000 worth of surgery. I can't even find a surgeon to take care of that.
Yes.
My genitals, unfortunately, it looks like they pulled on the left labia to the point where now it permanently hangs out in a way that has never done that before. When I got home, I started to bleed. And I started to bleed. And at the time, I wasn't taking testosterone. So I knew that my cycle was coming, but it wasn't for about 2 weeks. But I do know that if I have any kind of penetrative sex, especially because I don't do it often, it'll trigger my period to come sooner. So I was bleeding and I was so confused, and I felt this moisture here and this moisture there. And I'm sitting there and I'm ruminating about the fact that, well, no, the hospital would have known. They would have taken care of it. They would have told me. They would have something. Would have this. They would have that. And something kept telling me, no, something's off, something's off, something's off. My body was feeling weird. It was almost like my body was numb from here down because I was in such shock.
And this is already after you went home.
This is when I went home. It only took me about 25 minutes to get home from the hospital. And I'm sitting in the bathroom and I call my best friend Lucky and I say, I've been raped and I need help and I don't know what to do. I don't know where to go. And it was so unique because, I've helped community for years and usually I do know what to do. But in that situation, I was so overwhelmed and he helped me. He told me to go to a clinic so that I can get Plan B so that I can, prevent any kind of pregnancy. He helped me get PEP medications to prevent any kind of HIV infection. I had to take the medication for about 28 days. It made me extremely sick. I couldn't walk for about 2 weeks properly.
Wow. Jesus.
Yeah. And then I slowly and surely started healing my body. I stayed home and I went back to work only about a month and a half later, back on the clock. Because for me, the job that I had at the time was an STI clinic, and it meant so much to me to show up, to really create those resources for people and really show them that empathy that I didn't receive at the hospital. And I did a really good job that, I mean, so much so that there are people on Yelp that were actually reviewing me on an STI clinic, which I don't think anybody has ever reviewed an STI clinic on Yelp, but they were like, Shane is amazing. He took care of me.
Yes.
And that made me so proud and doing that work. And some other stuff that I've, worked on was working with the city because I do sit on the Transgender Advisory Board. I do have a relationship with the council members. When the incident did happen, I reported it directly to the city. After that, it was discovered. Well, there's a little more. I don't want to skip ahead, but basically after I went to the clinic and I got my Plan B and my PEP medication, I went directly to the sheriff's station in West Hollywood to report the crime.
Right.
I walked in. I'm still bleeding at this point. It's only been, maybe 24 hours or not even, maybe 12 hours since the incident has happened. And that deputy refuses to allow me to make a police report.
What?
Yeah.
What did he say? What is
it? Was a she. I mean, the thing is I don't want to disclose the name so much because I have to be careful with that. But what I can tell you is that I walked into that office and I asked for a rape kit, and that detective said, "Rape kit? You don't need a rape kit."
Really?
Yeah. And it wasn't because, I don't know really what it was, because I still to this day, there's been explanations afterwards where the city now has gone into not quite an investigation, but more of like a question of why wasn't that report taken? And the excuse from the sheriffs were it was an overtime officer that didn't have proper training. But here's the crazy thing. So that same lieutenant or captain was pulled back into another meeting by a city council member and said, "What's the difference between the training for sheriffs that are overtime and the sheriffs that are not?" And they couldn't give an answer.
Wow.
They couldn't give an answer. So why wasn't I allowed to make a police report when I was assaulted?
Yeah.
And through that experience, I started to turn over every stone that I could in the city to start finding out what was going on in this system.
Right.
And in that discovery, the sheriffs sent in a report to the city, and that report indicated that 100% since 2016, 100% of sexual assaults and druggings that happened within the city, none of them brought charges.
Wow. That's crazy.
100%. I mean, in the history of any community worker, I mean, in any industry, nobody says 100%. Everybody says, "Oh, it's a 99.9% guarantee." These statistics are 100%.
Yeah.
So something's going on.
Yeah,
and,
something.
I've really learned that there's a system in place that is purposely keeping folks from really reporting and understand what's really going on. And it's really interesting because, with Jeffrey Dahmer being so popular right now,
I was just going to say,
and the way that the sheriffs treated that whole situation where they knew who he was, they knew he was assaulting and killing people, but they didn't care because they were black and brown folks. There's also another individual in the city of West Hollywood that was just sent to federal prison named Ed Buck. I don't know if you know anything about that story.
Yeah.
It's very similar to Jeffrey Dahmer. Now, I don't think Ed Buck consumed body parts, but what he did do was he drugged homeless black men in his apartment and raped them. And the sheriffs didn't start getting involved until the second person was found dead in their apartment.
Yeah.
It took so many community activists like Jasmine Koenig who came in and really created a voice to make change. And, her story has inspired me in so many ways to continue the effort and the work, because the city of West Hollywood can be a beautiful thing, but there are some folks that are still in power that are causing a lot of pain for people.
Yeah. So, so you also report onto the media, news.
Yeah.
And what are their response? Are they more supportive?
Well, here's the crazy thing too. I went to all of the local media in West Hollywood because I used to do advertising for them. So I knew all the owners of, different media sources. And I tried to get them to interview me to tell my story.
Yes.
Some of them, took my story, but none of them ran the story at all.
Wow.
And none of them have run any of the stories that are going on in West Hollywood right now. It's almost been this weird blackout because there's been these city council meetings. And I mean, you can go to my TikTok right now. You can watch some of them. You can watch some of them on Instagram. And you will see, sheriffs admitting horrible things like that their training includes flags when it comes to LGBT folks. That's their extensive training on learning how we work as a community. And the media the local media just has not reported on it at all. And, I realize that a lot of those local media sources are supported by the advertisement of those bars. So it's kind of like biting the hand that feeds you. So I've had to go outside of West Hollywood to make connections with media,
right?
Because the local media won't report. But, luckily the national media sees the importance of this because this story is beyond me. I mean, my story is one of maybe 1,000, maybe 100,000. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's all lives matter, trans lives matter, Black lives matter. And many victims don't speak out because they're afraid.
Yeah.
Or if they maybe try to speak out, like go to those resource or media, and they just get shut down. Remember, you just mentioned on the show how many times that neighbor tried to report Jeff Dahmer, and nobody give a damn.
Yeah.
And the neighbor just has to keep trying.
Yeah.
But a lot of victims, they probably just give up.
Yeah.
And so that means the voice is quiet.
Yeah.
And the the crime or the murder will continue to do what they want to do.
Just walking free on the streets, and it's risking other citizens' lives.
Right. So that's why what you're doing, I'm very, proud of you. I know it's very hard. I kind of experienced some sort like somebody tried to drug me as well before, but wasn't like in your degree. So I know how that feel, and I know how internal you feel, not just physical. It can break you, if some people might just do something way stupid or something bad.
Well, luckily I haven't done anything stupid because I have a lot of beautiful people around me that are guiding me.
That's good.
And that's what's keeping me from doing stupid things. But, I'm turning this pain into power, and it is hard.
Right.
Even after going on the news and basically telling the world, hey, I've been raped. I went to the local grocery store by my house, and two guys that were like, cisgender kind of probably, straight guys recognized me, and they started laughing at me and kind of following me in the store. Yeah. I mean, because some people, it's really horrible, especially as a male victim of rape. People don't take it seriously. People have literally questioned, because I'm a big guy, how could that happen to you? No, not you. No way. That could never happen to you. I mean, even so much so that I fell for that I was in a space and I could never even fathom that happened to me because I am a big guy. But unfortunately, being trans doesn't really prevent you from that type of assault. If someone wants to target you because you're trans and they visibly know you're trans, and I mean, I'm pretty trans all over the city of West Hollywood. So I'm very vocal.
Right.
So it's the challenge of finding your voice while, facing a lot of these systems that are built into shutting our voices up.
Yeah. And also, like I mentioned, this can happen to anyone. It's just not trans or LGBTQ members. So I did also saw some news that you were in recently, and they say they're gonna do something about it, coming up with some sort of test strip. Have you heard of that?
Yeah. So the amazing thing is, through my incident, there's been a lot of advocacy. A lot of community has jumped in and taken the lead as well. After coming out with my story, we've actually been able to get test strips for the city of West Hollywood for drinks. So folks can actually test their drinks while they're, in the bars. Unfortunately, the bar that I was assaulted in and some of the other bars are refusing to actually take these test strips in their bars.
Are you serious?
Oh, I'm not. I'm so serious. So much so that one of them said to a council member directly, never in my bar will I have that. It's a liability.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
I know.
Wow.
That's why I'm speaking out now, because I've seen so much, and I love the city of West Hollywood so much. I'm probably one of the only current appointed city officials that I know of who has probably lived through different economic statuses in the city of West Hollywood, where when I was a young kid, I was busking on Santa Monica Boulevard with my guitar and a cup back when I was homeless, trying to make money for a motel room. And at the same time, I've been a board member for LA Pride. I've been an appointee for the city official. I've worked, in health services for the city. I've worked in mental health services. I've worked in community services. And I've really seen a well-rounded idea of what the potential of the city of West Hollywood can be. And most folks, when something like this happens, they want to throw their hands up in the air. But for me, I see this as a turning point for the city of West Hollywood.
Yes.
I see this as a moment for them to shine, a moment for more voices to be brought in,
Right.
and more people to be brought in.
Yes. Yeah. So that's the positive side of coming out from this tragedy.
Yeah.
And also, like you're gonna have some meeting coming up tomorrow.
Yes. So I'm going to be going to the West Hollywood City Council meeting. I'm going to speak out again. I think it's really important that we stay on it and we stay consistent.
Right.
Because these council members, the way the system works, you can't just show up once. You have to be consistent. Just like that neighbor in the Dahmer, story. They probably called 100 times before, anybody even noticed anything. So my goal is just to stay consistent, not get burnt out, and get folks to understand that they can make a change too, even if it's just digitally joining along or liking a post or sharing a post and extending that platform so that other people can see that story and see really what's going on, so we can really find a solution to this problem.
Yeah. Solution or prevent next victim.
Yeah.
And I also know that you turn this, you say, power into music.
Yeah.
So we're gonna play right at the end of the show. So you have any other words for our listener, our viewers?
Well, I will say sometimes life teaches you things that you don't quite understand what the lesson is until you've gone through it.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I've been in the same shoes. I've been a mess before, do all those crazy things before.
Yeah.
And I use movies, to like you to reflect, to tell a story. And now I'm using podcasts to tell everyone's story, not just mine. Yeah. Okay. So thank you for joining us today. And I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Okay. And please come back next time.
I will.
To share more stories, more talents of yours.
And look for me on Spotify, by the way. I've recently officially done it. I've joined Spotify after 10 years of making music. This incident has actually inspired me to get back in the studio. I just released a new song. There's going to be a lot of remixes coming back out, a lot of the old songs that you remember, and some new stuff coming out. And I'm just looking at creating some sort of hope, even if it isn't the perfect direction, if it's messy. As long as we're doing something to build some resources for community, let's be problematic with power,
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're going to have all Shane's social media links, music, YouTube channel, TikTok under the show notes, so you can connect with him, check him out. Okay. Thank you again for watching and listening. We will be right back next time. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Have you ever felt like you never had a place to be?
activists and all the people yelling with bullhorns, that tiny fraction of who you really are, you do not represent the community. This is what the community looks like. This is the business.
Then it becomes the cost of a business owner to chase us and get footage. It is completely not worth our time when they call on Monday morning and ask us for footage. You got to get the AV guy to come in for $25 or $50 an hour, and already the loss becomes a real tangible other loss. It doesn't pay.
It's not fun going back to the business by yourself, especially if you're dealing with in my case, it was an older gentleman who really doesn't want to have to deal with it because they don't want to have to admit that a crime was committed. Well, you know what? This could have killed me.
I just know it's hard, but you know you give it up when you turn around, touch the ground and realize there's nothing left to give for. There's nothing left to breathe. There's nothing left to do. There's nothing left for you. There's nothing left for me. There's nothing but this lie we tell ourselves that we live between.